Okay, we're going to look at layout now. Why didn't I do the hair? Well, this hair has a lot of extraordinary vertices. It's a lot of external tubes that are just extruded from a base mesh. To get it to flow correctly with hair, it would be a nightmare when you apply the alpha and the hair and trying to get it to flow correctly. Instead, I'm going to say you should probably do it just like the last chapter with the hair and use this mesh as your collision dummy to straighten it out. So please follow that workflow. And we're going to say hair be gone. Now, we have to talk about things like layout. Right now, if I highlight all this mesh, I have the coat on one UV layout, okay, the pants on another, the boots on another, the hands on another. We have to combine all these together and talk about that. I like to leave the head as a separate one, but sometimes you'll get a person that wants the mesh all on the same UV platter. So we're going to use a combination of both. I'm going to say, well, the eyes and the head are going to be part of one. So I'll combine those together. Okay. Then I'll take the UVs, control right click to shell, and move these shells off. Just like that. Also, red shells like this one need to be flipped. Just like that. This button allows you to highlight an island. So you can highlight islands just like this. In this case, I want to take and scale these down so they fit right on the UV area here. I also like to put them next to each other. Control right click to shell. And there we go. Now the head and the eyes are one texture, one image. Okay, so let's look at the coat and the hands and everything else. I'm going to combine those. I have this island tool highlighted. Again, I'm just going to move all these islands around. And I'm going to separate them for what they are. In other words, this part is the coat, pants, coat, hands, hands. These, I'm going to flip them around. This, I'm going to flip around. And then we're going to talk about uniformity. If I have the same texture resolution going throughout the model, it's going to help. So the hands would be much smaller. See the square size? As I said, square size doesn't really matter too much, but when it comes down to uniformity, if I have these like this, I'll know what texture resolution they are based upon the coat resolution, because they'll be the same resolution. Kind of hard to explain, but I'll try to show an example here in a little bit. Okay, so here's the pants, and there's the coat. Oh no, those are the boots. So the pants, these are much smaller. In other words, the mesh needs to be bigger here. So the squares here are the same size as the squares on the coat. That makes life a lot easier. Do not scale ununiformly when you're scaling these things. Don't go like this, and don't go like this. Go like this. Okay, good. Now they're all uniformed. Now, let's pseudo-arrange these so they're nice and tight, and they're separated by different material. Like the coat and the pants might be a different material altogether, and the boots might be a different material altogether. Also, layout. So if I'm going to make a texture for this, I kind of want to keep it within the flow of things. Here's the arms. Okay, if I made a texture that could wrap around this, I can go from one arm to the next. Stupid things like that really help. So I like to go like this and then pull back. I'm just lining a couple UVs up, and that was it. Okay, these all look good. Now it would be nice to know what the bottom of the hands and the top of the hands are. This is the bottom. I know that because look at the shell, how I highlight it. And this looks like a bottom too. Now sometimes you can mirror these. In other words, stack them on top of each other and save yourself some texture space. I'm not a really big fan of doing that because I know that when you go to use things like ambient occlusion or anything that relies on it being a singular shell that's not doubled over, anytime I have this, I have some problematic things occurring when I generate normal map. So I like to keep the hands separate. Like that. Not stacked. This will be nice here because let's say the bottom of the sole is a different texture altogether. I could flow it right into it. Alright, so general rule of thumb now, we're not going to scale anything individually. We're going to scale all as a group. And we're going to start putting these over here. And then we got to start deciding, what are we going to sacrifice here? I'm going to start moving these shells closer together. The closer you get these shells, the better, because then the more space you have, but also it becomes a little harder to texturize. So try to get these so they have very little space between each other. And you can see these are definitely not going to fit. Now again, look at your UV squares. Could you sacrifice some resolution for the coat? What I mean about sacrificing resolution, could these become a little smaller? just a skosh. I said we're not going to do that, but again, let's say talk about sacrifice here first. Okay, cool. Let's highlight all these. Hit R and scale them all as a group. Now let's see if I can get them all on there. Just like Tetris. Alright, and the more time you spend in this, the better. I do like this flow. It's going to make it a lot easier to paint the model. And I think I'm going to keep it the way it is. Now you can see the direction is a lot different here. It's a lot different. Because if you look here, I have this. Not a bad thing. Just makes it a little more difficult to texturize. So let's kind of look at a texturized process, shall we? Just an example, maybe on the coat, to see how that works and why it's so important to have things flowing the correct way. That way in Photoshop it's a little easier. So let's look at that as an example.